Good morning, friends. This is Sarah with the Arts and Healthcare program at Barnes Jewish Hospital. I'm so happy to be with you. Today we're going to do a simple painting project, a painted mandala, that I hope you'll enjoy and that you will make many of. But first, just a little bit of an overview. Working in the hospital for the last 14 years has shown me that creativity abounds anywhere by anybody. So when people feel that they're not artistic or they can't make something, I say, poppycock. So today, if you're feeling a little bit squeamish about making something, don't. In a healthcare setting, making and creating has all sorts of benefits. It builds awareness. It encourages self-expression. It's a coping mechanism for heavy emotions or grief. It lowers anxiety. It's a diversion from worry and rumination. And it can also be a just lovely space for joy and play and fulfillment. It can take you to that most marvelous state of flow, which is a state of heightened focus, which is immersion in any activity, but particularly in art. Flow will take you to places that you didn't realize were there. And today, using the painted mandala form, we are going to bring the inside out. If you have not used a mandala in the adult coloring book land, you're not missing anything. They are very beautiful but prescribed images that are hard, core, linear, very mathematical forms, and you can fall into coloring them. Many people love that, but today I'm going to take you on a much wilder ride. So the operative word today is play. So first of all, find a comfortable place to sit. All right, and then we're going to begin with our materials. I always like to have materials that people can access really easily. So as you can see, watercolor paint is number one. And these are really inexpensive watercolor sets that you can get at places like Michael's. I got these at a school supply. This particularly lovely set had 2 little brushes with it. This takes you back to grade school, the Prang oval watercolors. Any kind of watercolor set, it could be expensive. I have one that I like that is much pricier, that is opaque watercolor, made by Pelican. But anything that you can wet and smush is what you're going to use today. So these are 2 mandalas that I have been working on. And when I say working on, I mean for an hour. I'm trying to keep this under control here so that whatever you're doing will not take a very long time unless you want it to. So the paper you're going to use is up to you. It's got to have a little oomph to it. So the paper that I'm using is called Bristol board, and it's got a very smooth surface to it. I tend to like that better than the rougher watercolor paper. You can see that's got a lot of texture to it. It's like this giant cookie. I have scraps of watercolor paper that I've saved. You can see the gorgeous little decal edge on that. You don't need to get cuckoo about all your materials. You can use whatever it is you have at hand, but just make sure that the paper you're using has a little weight to it. I've often used Chinette paint or Chinette plates working on mandalas with children, or pizza rounds, so unused pizza rounds, as a circular form can be a very beautiful mandala jumping off point. So to begin, I started by just drawing or tracing a circle. You can see this with a pencil. And then I paid it no mind once I started getting the paint out. So get your paint set up next to you. You can get a giant brush. You know, I started in the beginning. I'm going to just give you one little, pardon my video skills, I'm hand holding this. And I wanted to make something that related to the garden. So I'm going over my other green circle. Lay out your color first. So make some decisions about where your mandala is going in terms of color direction. If that's kind of mysterious to you, you can go to colors that you just love. You know, you can look at your paint set and go, whoa, I want to try each one of those. You can have a smorgasbord of color on your mandala if you want to, which is what I seem to have done with this one I made yesterday. This is a really quick project. I'm serious about this. I maybe worked on this for 45 minutes in between things just to kind of get a sample of this. I had no flow here, I have to tell you, because I kept coming back to it. So as I looked at this color palette, I thought, not sure really where that came from until I found the mask I was wearing yesterday. And I realized, some subtle correlation, or not so subtle correlation, between my favorite mask and my mandala. I started with a red circle in the middle because it was kind of a beautiful, powerful color. So I took some of this gorgeous red paint in here and made a big dollop in the center as I began. And then as I finished the piece, going out to the edges, working ring by ring and color by color. And you can see I added shapes, more color, layered color, using Sharpie, or the most delightful markers, Posca. I'm going to plug these Uni Posca markers. They are my new favorite toy, and they're just simply paint markers, but they come in just a gigantic range of color and points, and they're just super fun to use. The watercolor is very loose and very sensuous. So once you start to move into your mandala with anything else, then you can do a little bit of a tighten up. So if you feel like you want to take some control, take a Sharpie or take a marker and then start to kind of define some of those areas a little bit more. What I did was go back into it with the paint markers with more embellishment and overlay of color, which is really fun. Or you can continue to do that with the watercolor. Let it dry a little bit in between. So I'm going to show you this juicy mess right here. I'm going to let that go. Here's one that I started with Sharpie. So the beginning of this mandala, I didn't want it to be too controlled, but I started with a drawing, very, very loose drawing on this watercolor round. So I started with the black marker, and then I went back into it with Sharpie and watercolor. Now I'm going to probably go back into this until it's unrecognizable in its current state, but it's just fun to kind of see the process of building this. What do those forms mean? Well, you decide. If there's something that you want to portray that is a powerful, powerful image, find an object or an image that will tell your story. This is your space, your spot to do whatever it is you want to do. So I'm going to take my mask mandala, move it over here. Oops, I forgot my most important prop. When I began this and realized that the mask was my model, I went back into the really beautiful red center with my lipstick that I have to confess I only carry around as some weird ancient ceremonial object since no one sees my lips anymore. And I'm sure that wearing lipstick around the house would be puzzling to my husband. So, in the beginning, there was a red circle that was painted, and in the end was my favorite scarlet lipstick smooshed into the middle. So only I needed to know that, but I thought I'd share that with you. This mandala, again, started out very loose, and I let some of the history of that paint stay visible because I loved it. But then as I went in, I was having much more of a I need to control you day. And it was an emotion that I wasn't particularly feeling. Sometimes you can use your mandala to state where it is you are at any given moment. And I was not feeling like Sunnyside that day, so I thought I'd force the issue. And then by the time I finished this mandala with my weird little storm clouds that were over the sunny side, I found this to be some strange little exploration of color that I couldn't even tell you where the source was from. But again, if you look at it closely, you can see the marker, the paint marker, you can see the beautiful looseness of the paint, and you can also see the control that I needed to have. So while you're painting your mandala, think about where you're going with it. Or think of nothing at all. It could be a wonderful space for mindfulness, for meditation. It could be simply about the color and about the form. I'm finding these are becoming more diary-like. This is the one I made for you all this morning because it is hot, hot, hot in St. Louis. And again, the forms are organic. The most rigid piece of this, I think, is that little sun/saw blade around the edge. And then my compulsion for language started here with the hot, hot sun. The point is, whatever it is you're doing with your mandala and however it is you want to approach it, feel the flow, get into the flow, make something and save it. Don't rip it up. Don't think it's not good, because this is a place of total non-judgment and play and love. So, dear friends, have a blast. Make your mandala any way you wish. And I'm wishing you a good and safe and happy day. Bye.